Michael Kerr. A very quiet meeting today, really, and lots of unanimous decisions.
Just how council meetings should be. It was well done, well spoken, well thought out. People had the information in front of them and they all agreed to everything, so it was good.
Okay, let's go through the agenda. Combined development for dual occupancy and reconfiguring down at Lot 1 at 56 Mudlow Street in Port Douglas. This is kind of good development, isn't it?
It is. Nathan Vera, I have to say, does some fantastic projects in the Shire, and this is going to be another one. The designs suit what our planners are looking for, and of course the buildings will be an asset. You know, they're good properties, and so we're quite happy to subdivide the land into two blocks. It fits in with the planning scheme, and you know the staff gave their blessings, so of course we've given ours too.
The second item was infrastructure charge 5146 Captain Cook Highway at Oak Beach. Now this was a bit of a dispute over infrastructure charges that council were making on the particular property owner. Could you just explain what happened?
Well, under the planning scheme, when people put in an application for a venue, like to have a wedding venue, council will calculate the amount of usage of on our infrastructure and charge them accordingly. And if you go through for that type of wedding catering, normally would there be about $13,000 worth of infrastructure charges. But if you look at the application, he's not going to be using it all the time. It's going to be minimal amounts. You know, it's going to be a small amount of people as well. And to justify it, councillors thought, you know, we need to charge according to what he's actually going to be using on the land. So the staff did some sums, came back to us with another figure, and we find that's appropriate, and at least that covers all the road usage. When his guests are going to be staying at hotels, so they're going to be using water, they're going to be using sewerage, and you know, all those things will cover over the years. So that's a more appropriate charge that he's been given.
And what is that appropriate charge?
And that was about just over 5,000, I believe.
From 13 down to 5?
Yes.
Sanity prevailed?
Well, it's illogical, and that's what we ask, you know, is that when these applications come in, everyone's given fair and, you know, just cause, and, you know, the staff looked at it realistically, and we're happy with the result.
On to item 3, ultra filtration cartridges. Now you'd think that's, only a small little one there. $253,440.
Absolutely. And anyone who's watched the water videos would have seen the cartridges. They do show them. They're like a plastic tube with little fine spaghetti in them, and the water rushes through that and it takes out the bacteria. Now there's only one company that actually makes those, so therefore, because we can't go through a normal procurement process of asking people to tender for it, we have to have a council resolution just to ensure we're covering our bases, and that's what that motion was for.
And it's Kosh cartridges. That's not David Kosh, that's not Koshy, is it?
Nothing to do with Koshy.
Thought he might have a little business on the side there. Let's move on to the smart water meters, $670,000 worth. Smart meters. I mean, this brings us into the 21st century, doesn't it?
I mean, how fantastic it's going to be. You'll be able to see your water usage on a daily basis using your smartphone. And that's what we want. You know, we do have an ageing infrastructure here in Douglas, and quite often you find that people do get water leaks and they don't know about them until their water bill comes in. And then it's mad panic stations because they get this extortionate bill, you know. And unfortunately, we've made the water, it's cost us, and therefore the cost is passed on to the ratepayers. Having this system, at least they'll be able to see their water usage on a daily basis. If they do happen to get a leak, they can see it straight away, and they will get notified by council as well that their water usage has suddenly gone up. So all these things will take into place, and it'll be just a great asset for this Shire as far as our water consumption goes.
On to dog registration. Now this is an interesting one because the Deputy Mayor, Lisa Skomazon, was a little fearful that council officers, although they have the right to go onto people's property, she wanted to make sure that they didn't sort of open the gates, go in while people weren't there. Now, dog registration obviously is very important.
Absolutely, and it's legislated by the state government. You know, every dog after 6 weeks or 12 weeks old has to be registered. It's that simple. And we're the policing body for it. So if there comes cases where dogs aren't registered and they go to court, the first thing they'll be looking at is, well, what's council's process? What have we done to ensure that they've been registered? You know, when there's a dog attack on the beach, if council officers are investigating it, it's really hard to find a dog that's not even registered with us. If a dog's lost, you know, they pick a dog up on the street, no microchip, no tag, how are we going to find the owner? So then it becomes onerous and cost-wise to try and find the owners. So ensuring your dog's registered covers all bases for council, and it's legislation. It needs to happen, it's law. So by doing this process, and I agree with Councillor Scommers, and we don't want the ratepayers to think that we're coming down on them and we're going to be belting down, cutting locks to get, that's not the case. What they'll be doing is progressively going through the estates, listening out for dogs. If a dog barks, they know there's a dog there. And then they'll look at the paperwork and say, well, there's not one registered here. We need to follow this up, and we'll send them a letter, or we'll follow up and visit again when they're home. So it's going to be a gentle process. We're giving people the notification that it's time to register your dog if it's not registered. That simple. Do it now, get it registered, and you won't get a fine when this happens.
Do we do a chip or do we do a tag?
We do a tag here. So you can get microchips from the vet. That's a different thing to the registration of your animal within council. With council, when you register, you get a tag, and that's a lifelong tag. We won't issue another one unless you ask for one. They used to send them out yearly, so you got a different colour every year so you can see. Waste of plastic, and that's the last thing we want to do. So now you just get one tag. If it breaks or if you lose it or what the case may be, contact council, they'll reissue with another one.
Now, does this cost people money?
Registering the dog does initially, and then it's a yearly basis. But if you've got your dog desexed like it should be, I think it's about $30 a year.
Right. No, it's good to, and I suspect you'll have a bit of a campaign and letting people know about it, give them a bit of notice about this.
Absolutely. There'll be advertising to say that it's time, get out there, register your dog now because we're about to do some checks.
Okay, the financial report, that's usually fairly dry when we talk about these things. However, in this COVID time and the ferry costs that you had and the purchase of the ferry and all that, we're told by Tara Killeen, the Chief Financial Officer, that this month, August, might be a bit dodgy.
Well, unfortunately, everyone's suffering at the moment. The lockdowns have hit everyone. We certainly weren't anticipating it. Everyone thought we were going to have a bumper season. And that's, I think what's hurting our businesses even more is last year we knew it was going to be quiet. That we just dealt with it. This year we thought we were going to be in for a bumper year, and suddenly the carpet was ripped out from underneath us and we're all going, but we've budgeted this, we've got staff trained, we've done all this work. Council's no different. We've allocated our budgets assuming that things were going to be going good this year. So when the ferry, quietens down and we stop getting revenue from that, that affects our budget. And that's what Cara was saying with this report. This first one being July, it's only in the start of the financial year, so you can't really tell much from it other than basically how we've been trading. But there's lots of things still outstanding that will need to be added through it as we move forward. But it's a report, we have to approve it monthly, and we have done.
Then it went on to sole supplier register. That was covered pretty well, and that's just the people that supply you, and that list changes from time to time. Now, this will be of interest to people. Rates increase, grace period extension, unanimous, and I guess for people who are finding it a little bit difficult to pay their rates, this is an addition.
Well, it's a good news story to get the word out there that don't stress if you haven't got the money right now to pay it. You're not going to be charged interest on. Normally there's an 8-day grace period, but we're going to give you a 30-day grace period because we understand that times are tough and things out there just aren't going to plan. So, and I think it's also a good sense to be able to get a story out to people that if you can't afford to pay your rates bill, contact council. Don't just bury it and say, I can't afford it. You'll start getting interest. Things will start happening on this side. Ring them up, say, listen, I can't afford it. What can you do to help? And they will assist you. The council staff are good at that. They'll go through the process with you, what they can do.
Now, the draft reconciliation action plan, long overdue, this one for the Indigenous community. What sort of thing are we going to see with this?
Well, as I said in the meeting, this is walking the walk rather than just talking the talk. And it goes through and it really stipulates all the different things that council can do to show that we are an inclusive organisation as far as what we do with employing staff, as far as what we do with the different activities within the Shire to be inclusive. It lists everything. It's a fantastic document, and I am so proud of Margaret and the work that she's done for this council and getting it to this stage. And realistically, this is the first stage. But as Margaret has said, when you look at this council, we're actually at the next stage. So it's not going to be too long before we get the next sign off. But it's got to go through a process, and it's got to go to Reconciliation Australia. They'll sign off on the first one. we'll confirm that we're doing everything appropriately, and we'll take the second one through, get that signed off as well. And I'm determined, I want to get this through as quickly as possible and make sure that we're doing the best we can for our First Nations people.
I think it's fantastic, and I've got to give you a rap on this, because really this council does a lot for the Indigenous community and really recognising it. Even the painting behind you right now is an Indigenous painting. So it's great to see, and everybody needs to be inclusive, including the rest of the Shire.
Absolutely. This is our history. This is, these people have been here for millions of years. They know this land, they understand how this land works. And if we're not paying attention to how this country is supposed to work, we're just going to destroy it. They know this land, and some of their history, it's just so fascinating, and it's worth bringing that out and making sure that everyone's aware of what they were, what they've gone through since white man arrived here, and how we can actually work together to make sure that we are one united nation and they are part of us and not a separate entity.
Yeah, and it's working well. For the federal government is working that way as well, and state governments, but on a local level I think the Douglas Shire Council does an incredible job. We moved on to the Black Spot Towers. Now, could you just explain what went on there?
Well, I think it was back in the 80s, it would have been that there was a lot of areas that were missing out on free-to-air television, and back then of course it was only 7 channels, I think it was, if that. And so the federal government did a funding scheme where they put these repeater towers up where, council could look after them, and these people would be able to get their free-to-air TV.
And these locations were?
Well, you got one up in Cow Bay, there was one in Daintree Village, and there's one in Shannonvale. And, over the years, it's been 30 odd years, they've never put any more funding towards it, and these towers haven't been upgraded by anyone but council. And of course television has changed so much between changing to digital. You've now got 22 channels. It's too hard for council to be forking out hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep upgrading and maintaining these towers for television. That's the television stations and the state government's jobs to be doing, not council's jobs. So the one in Cow Bay, that got to a point where it's just completely unrepairable, so we had to turn that one off, and it's been sitting there for the last year and a half, I believe it is. So that motion was to decommission that one, pack it down altogether. It's never going to be used. The one for Daintree Village was giving the Daintree Village people notification that we hope it will last until June next year. It is minimal amount of channels on it. They certainly don't get all the channels that are available, and there's certainly ways where these people can sign up to the various different satellite channels, etc., where they can get a lot better reception, a lot better quality as the amount of channels they can get. Go out and do it now and don't wait to the last minute. The third tower, of course, is the one that's in Shannonvale, and so we're doing a survey on that one to find out how many residents out there are actually using that tower. Whether it's worthwhile for council to be forking out more money to keep fixing that tower, or a lot of these people are already on Foxtel and SkyMast and all those things already. So we just want to know where we sit with that one before we make any decisions with it. Good
stuff. Now we've got a couple of items. Reef To Reef, that's the bikes, having their race. Now they wanted 20,000 or 15,000. You worked out 20,000 per year over 3 years. A great event for us.
It certainly is. This is an event that used to be held here. People would be familiar with it. It finishes on 4 Mile Beach. I love the fact that it's a race that's in Douglas. It finishes here in Port Douglas, so therefore all the competitors, all the spectators, they hang around, they have lunch, they have dinner, they stay in accommodation. It makes it a worthwhile event for us to look after. And
unlike some other events.
Unlike some other events that unfortunately finish in Cairns and just use our roads. But that's another story, of course. So, I'm happy with this one because we're putting money into marketing. It gives us our branding out there. It gives us advertising, and it allows us to do other events around it as well, which is a great thing.
Wonderland Spiegel tent, they wanted 55,000 per year over 3 years, plus $10,000 in kind. Before we get to that, what's in kind mean for those people who don't know what that means?
So in kind is an expense that councils incur. So if we send workers out there to put up some temporary fencing, or if we send workers out there to put bollards up, direct traffic, all those sorts of things where council will incur a cost for it, whether it be staff labour or things we may have here. If they need a bit of gravel that we've already got, those sorts of things are in kind. If we have to go out and purchase them, that's not in kind. That would be classified as cash donation or cash grant funding, etc.
Well, unanimous. Wonderland Spiegel tent will be there for 22, 23 and 24.
Absolutely. I love this venue. It's one of the best things that's come to Douglas. It really is. And I think anyone who's been to the Spiegel tent understands that it is an absolute asset for Carnival. The different acts that knockout events bring, it's entertaining every time. I know I'll never look at popcorn again the same after the last show. It was a learning experience for me. And it's entertainment, and that's what we want. There comes a point where people really do need to get out there and be able to enjoy themselves, and to be able to get people from not only in the Shire, our locals, but tourists, people from Cairns, people from all around this area come to Port Douglas. They spend money in the restaurants and the bars. They can see some good quality entertainment and go home and gives them memories of some great times they had here in Port Douglas.
And finally, the Mossman District Show wanted $20,000 a year in kind only. I didn't think that was too much to ask.
Well, it's not, but it still comes out of our budget. Even though it's in kind, it's still a cost to council, and it comes out of our budget, so it has to be allocated for.
What a show, though.
Exactly. It's a great show, and people come from all around the regions, to Mossman and spend money in Mossman, and that's fantastic. And these people, they'll come here, enjoy a great day, pay for rides, pay for food, enjoy themselves. It gives people an opportunity, especially the kids, to have some fun outdoors, which is always good, rather than sitting at home playing on a PlayStation, which is really, really important. And and these people, again, more than likely will go to the Daintree if they've come here from somewhere else, or they'll go to Port Douglas and spend money in Douglas Shire, and that's really important.
Mayor Michael Kerr, thank you for an old-fashioned council meeting today.
Thank you very much, and as always, don't forget, if you're going to do it, you do it in Douglas.